the Eccles Business Buzz podcast. I'm your host, Frances Johnson, and I'm so glad you've joined me as we continue our deep dive into the new strategic direction, priorities, and goals here at the David Eccles School of Business. When we think about the strategic priority of student success, we know that it has to include more than just classroom learning. Hands-on, experiential learning is a key component to a positive and impactful student experience, and it is also one of the key differentiators offered here at the Eccles School. Joining me today to talk about the value of experiential learning and how it's being put into practice at the Eccles School and the University of Utah more broadly are Ruchi Watson and Maya Jolley. Ruchi is Managing Director of the Goff Strategic Leadership Institute and a professor in the Department of Entrepreneurship and Strategy here at the Eccles School. Her research focuses on the areas of strategic leadership, with work published in the Harvard Business Review. Maya is Director of Student Experience and Marketing and Communications at the Goff Strategic Leadership Institute. Dedicated to problem finding, value creation, and mentorship, Maya helps empower students to become value creators through experiential education. Ruchi and Maya, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thanks for having us, Francis.
Thanks, Frances.
Well, Maya, I want to start with you and this idea of student experience, your passion for engaging students and really guiding them through a positive experience through Goff and at the school and the university more broadly. When you think about the student experience as it relates to experiential learning, what are we talking about? What does experiential learning mean for a student and their experience?
Yeah, thanks, Frances. There's so many different ways to answer this. And I think, largely, if you're just to look at the experience that a student has here on campus, there's so many opportunities for them to engage beyond maybe the theoretical and really drive experiences and experiential and hands-on learning forward. I think of even the student organizations that a student joins, the process of deciding a major and the self-reflection and the opportunities and the really, taking life by its horns experience that they have there, all the way to maybe if they were to get an internship or do one of our project-based courses at Goff. There's so many different methods of engaging in experiential learning. I think one thing that we try and really do here at Goff is provide that self-reflection for those students to say, hey, you're here on this campus and there are more opportunities than maybe you even realize that you're already engaging in to practice and build your resume and build your life skills and learn more about yourself so that you can be better set up for success after graduation. So I think, just like the wide expanse of experiential learning, it's really from the moment that they set their foot on this campus all the way until graduation. And it doesn't even have to be a formal experience. Though here in Goff, we do provide really unique experiences both inside and outside the classroom to provide experiential learning to our students here at the University of Utah and all across campus.
I love that word you used, practice, Maya, because I think that that is a really key component when we're talking about an experience. We're talking about testing things out, right? Trying things. Maybe we don't get it exactly right. Maybe we think we want this major and then we get down that road and think, oh man, this is not for me at all. Maybe we have an internship and we're testing out skills that we've learned and realizing, oh, I know how to do this. I don't know so much how to do this. So I think that's a great way to think about it. Experiential can sometimes feel, I don't know, hard to pin down, I guess. And we talk about experiences in so many different ways, not even in an educational context. But I think thinking about it in terms of practice. How do I take what I've learned and test it out in an environment outside of my classroom learning? I think is a really great framework to build the rest of our discussion around. And you mentioned, I also love this idea that it can be informal, like the experience I have maybe in a student organization or with a cohort, but it can also be a formalized experience like the programs that you have at Goff, Maya or Ruchi, I'll let you duke it out, but I'd love to hear an example. Let's get some concrete examples going here of a specific way that at Goff you deliver this kind of experiential learning. What's an example that you'd want to share?
Yeah, and maybe I'll kind of like talk larger, the way in which we approach these experiences and developing these experiences for students. Then Ruchi can give some classroom examples. Maybe our team started the current team of Goff started in 2020, and since then we've seen just such an insane amount of growth, both within the institute and then also just demand for our programs. Which has been really exciting. And I really see my job as director of student experience to kind of have one ear on the ground of what do students want, what do they need to feel successful after graduation. We know that 51% of Gen Z graduates are not feeling prepared to enter the workforce right now. So a lot of what we're doing is trying to bolster that so that we can say you're growing in confidence, you're getting these experiences here so that when you go into the workforce, you really know already a little bit of what you're good at, what to expect, and then also can really succeed in your future careers. So a lot of what we do is innovative. We're always trying new things, trying new ways to engage students in hands-on learning. So that might look like a full case competition with a local company one year, whereas another year it might be a service project, whereas another time it might be more small, intimate, cohort-based learning. So we're really nimble in how we provide these opportunities, especially as we try and continue our reach across campus. But since we've started, we went from one undergraduate program to four signature programs in the last 5 years. And Ruchi, I don't know if you want to give a few examples of what those look like.
Sure. Thanks, Maya. It's really so fun to work with students on these projects. I just have to say, by the way, because they are so poised for growth and so eager. And so I just feel like it's the best job in the world that we have to be able to work with them and see their growth. But to share a couple of examples, one of the things that I think is special about Goff is that we meet the students where they are. So we all know students are told to get an internship, for example. But that's not always so easy. If they come in and they haven't had an experience, or maybe they've just babysat or worked in a family business, they may not know how to talk about that and how to get an internship through the more formal channels of going online and applying. They may not even have a resume. And so, seeing that problem, we said, okay, how can we give them an internship? So, we have one of our programs called Explorers. That's a 1 credit hour class. And we literally hand them an internship that's right and ready for a student that has not been in their major, doesn't have those classes yet, but is really eager to learn. And to your point, experiment, Francis. So these are internships that are 5 to 7 hours a week, so they don't overwhelm them while they're in school. But it's not just about having the experience, it's about what goes along with it. So if we do put our scientist hat on and think about someone who's experimenting, what are they doing? They're observing, they're taking notes, they're getting feedback, they're adjusting. And so we teach a lot of really great strategic leadership principles as these students are going through an internship and give them a ton of feedback. We push them to think differently, to identify new opportunities, to get comfortable with ambiguity. So just to give an example is, a student might be asked to do social media. In a traditional internship, they'd probably just say, okay, tell me what to post, and then go do exactly what they were asked to do. At Goff, we're really teaching them to challenge that, to question that, and say, why do they want me to do this social media? What is the ultimate goal of the organization or the team? And what do I have? Because they have amazing strengths, whether they're 18 years old or 30 years old, that they can bring to the opportunity. So, what can they bring to that might be a little bit different? So, we had one student that, for example, that was doing some social media work and did that questioning and ended up actually getting some video work for them and having someone do an interview that was another one of our Goff clients coming on. And so they had this really great opportunity to see the bigger picture and bring something that was a talent of theirs to bear versus just doing what they're told, which is more valuable not only for the student, but also for the organization.
I know, Ruchi, you and I have talked, and I've heard you present about this idea of relentless value creation, right? Not just what am I being asked to do, but what is something unique that I can bring to whatever the situation is. And it doesn't only apply to our jobs. So obviously, that's what we're kind of focused on helping students do. But student success isn't just do I get a job when I graduate, but am I prepared, right? To Maya's point, do I feel prepared for that job? And do I feel prepared as a person for my life, right? We don't just want to graduate job robots. We want to graduate people who are, good people looking to make a good impact, prepared to really have a life of purpose in addition to meaningful careers. And that is really, I think, if we look at all the strategic priorities of the school, and we're going to be breaking them down over the course of the season, but they all sort of drive to that idea, right, of students seeking and reaching their peak, as we've all heard Dean Dirks talk about a lot. And that includes being prepared as strategic leaders and as people interested in making a positive impact. Ruchi, as you think about sort of zooming out and that larger strategic direction of the school, where we want to be in a year, 5 years, with what we offer students, with our reputation, with our impact on the economy and our communities, how is experiential learning really an important part of that broader strategy for the school?
Thanks, Francis. I think it's critically important. I mean, it's not even just about the Eccles School or at the U, it's about the value of a higher education as a whole, we know, which is under attack. People don't understand necessarily. If I go to a classroom and I learn something, is that valuable? And I think when you pair what you learn with how you do things, then that really is magical. And experiential learning takes you to that place of taking what you know and figuring what to do with it to make it valuable. And so, as we think about that, that is really game changing and something that isn't necessarily happening everywhere. It's really unique to the Eccles School to have experiential learning not only baked in to the core required classes, but a student who's interested in impact investing can go do something at the Sorensen Impact Institute. A student that's interested in, policy could go work at the Gardner Policy Institute. We have a number of different experiences that you really cannot find anywhere else that are right here at the Eccles School. And that makes us really differentiated and something that, to be honest, not only do we not see in other places, but as we've worked with consultants and other folks that have come in to evaluate what we do, they've said they're not seeing it elsewhere either. So it's really exciting to talk about the things that we're doing because you're really not going to find it at other institutions the way that we have it here. Now, how does that relate to other things like societal impact? Well, when you're working on experiential learning, you're working with a real organization oftentimes, or at least with a lot of what we do. So our students are going out in the community and they've worked with literally hundreds of organizations on real projects that impact them. So that's boosting our economy. That is also delivering professional education to people that work at those organizations. And something like 70% of our students stay in Utah. So everything that we're doing to teach students now is delivering impact in our communities, which is amazing. And then we think about the idea of delivering legacy. Well, obviously, everything I just said about community is legacy and reputation. But when you think about a student, what is really meaningful to them during their college careers? It's experiences like this. It's the things that challenge them, that help them grow, that feel different to anything else they've ever done. And that really makes them feel connected, not only to the professor or the experience, but to the Eccles School, to the University of Utah. And then they go out in the world and they talk about it. And so that in itself drives reputation and legacy. So it's really a self-fulfilling prophecy and something that's really exciting that we have here.
And leadership, I think, is also a really big part of that. Leadership isn't just CEOs. We're not all going to be CEOs, right? And probably some of us, I'll just speak for myself here, are not interested in being CEOs. But that doesn't mean that we aren't having leadership experiences in our workplace or maybe even in our personal lives, in our families or our community groups or whatever the case might be. We know that leadership is a big priority for our new dean. It's also really a big part of the mission at the Goff Institute itself, not just providing experiential learning, but providing that in a framework of strategic leadership and preparing students to be leaders in all kinds of different ways. So, how does experiential learning pair particularly well with this kind of leadership training? So we've talked about why it's important sort of generally the value that it brings in particular to a business education. But now let's drill down to this idea of leadership. How are these two things a particularly good fit? Ruchi, let's start with you. And then Maya, I'd love to hear your thoughts too.
Sure. I mean, I think one of the things when we talk about strategic leadership, one of the core things we're talking about is really creating value. And that could be whatever that means for the individual and what's value for them in their life, could be for the organization. And so by doing that work, that's how you understand what value is and how to actually drive it. Because you can learn about communication, but we all know that is such a difficult thing. And being able to influence people and communicate your ideas, you've got to fail a little bit. And like you said, test and learn. And sometimes you don't do it so well. And so being able to have experiential opportunities that help you with something that is as foundational as creating value in your personal and professional career is so important. And I think that's one of the things that's also unique about Goff is while we have all these other opportunities I mentioned, like if you're interested in impact investing, or if you're interested in real estate, we got all kinds of opportunities, but Goff is really foundational, and strategic leadership, as we talk about it, is incredibly foundational. So it's relevant to anybody for whatever your major background, level of organization. It's going to be something that can be valuable for you.
I just wanna put a pin in this so we remember, to talk about it, that this really is not just business specific. Though Goff lives in the business school, this is something that is applicable to students across campus in any major. So just so